Hi, I'm Melinda Stone. I am the Director of Sales for the Eastmont Towers Community, and I am joined today by Dr. Maital Neta. She is the Assistant Professor of Psychology at the University of Nebraska, and she is actually going to be joining us today for a presentation on positivity and the aging brain. Can you just tell me what's the good news that you might share with us today?
Yeah, so it's exactly that. So there's a lot of things that change in your brain with age, but one of the things that we've been seeing over the last couple decades even is that actually people feel more positive emotions. They remember more positive things than negative things. They pay attention more to positive things than negative things. And they are more able to see the good.
Awesome. And how do you test for that? Like, what does your research look like?
Yeah, there's a variety of ways to test these kinds of things. Some ways are just asking people to recall autobiographical memories from their life. And we see that older adults are more able and more quickly able to remember the positive memories than the negative memories. Whereas you see the opposite in young adults. You actually see them remembering negative things more frequently or more quickly. So there's a number of ways you can test that. We use a variety of approaches in my lab. One is just having people make judgments about emotional images. Do you think this is positive or negative? And we give them images, importantly, that don't have a clear positive or negative meaning. So there are certain things like angry faces. You see that and you know it has a negative meaning, but the surprised face is one that is really driven by the context and the situation. And so it doesn't have a correct answer. And so you show people faces like that and you say, do you think something positive is happening or something negative? And young adults are very variable. There's a huge range of individual difference in young adults, but what we see is that as people age, they get more and more positive. They're more willing or able to see the positive interpretation when it could be either.
Awesome.
Yeah.
And so what are kind of the greater implications of your research?
Yeah, so we're thinking about this in a lot of different ways actually right now. One of the things we're thinking about is kind of zooming out into the whole lifespan. What we see is kids actually have a more negative bias. They tend to see the negative side of these ambiguous items. And we think that's because the negative response is just the faster and easier response, and that you have to override that in order to see that it could be positive. And as people age, they get more and more willing or able to see the positive. And so we're really trying to study, how does that shift happen? Where are these individual differences coming from in young adulthood? But also, how is this trajectory happening where you start out really negative and you end up really positive? And we're looking at it not only behaviorally, right, how people actually respond, what kinds of emotions they report, but we look in their brain too. So we put them in an MRI and we can see what parts of their brain are active when they're making these kinds of decisions, when they're evaluating something that's ambiguous, and when they're seeing the positive. And also not only just what parts of their brain are active, but how is their brain wired? And how is that maybe different parts of your brain can communicate with one another to help you to produce a more positive interpretation? And so we're looking at a variety of different measures that might help support this trajectory towards positivity.
Awesome. So if I'm speaking with a potential resident or someone who lives at Eastmont and they want to foster more positivity, they're like, wait a minute, this is great research. How can I kind of encourage that natural process to be more positive? What would you suggest?
Yeah, so that's great. That's a great question. I think there's a lot of work still going on this. So I don't know if I have all the answers yet. But the one thing I will say is, what we've seen time and again is, like I said, the negative response is the faster one, the more automatic one. It's sort of like a knee-jerk reaction. If you don't know if something is good or bad, the knee-jerk is, this is bad. And we see that if we tell people, you know what, just think about it a little bit. Don't make a decision too quickly. People become more positive. So it seems like even just taking an extra second like taking a breath and thinking about it, you are going to be much more able to see that there's positive emotion in there too, that there's at least a possibility for a positive interpretation.
Awesome. Well, that's great advice actually for all of us. Well, I look forward to hearing your talk today.
Thank you.
And thank you so much for this great research you're doing. I have no doubt that it's going to affect a lot of things in the future for people.
Thanks so much. Thanks for having me.